What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to a Sool Radio Limited series. This is my first foray into movie reviews or anything of the sort. In this series, I'll be discussing the 2022 Academy Award nominees for Best Picture, film by film. And joining me for this series will be librarian, movie fan, and one of the hosts for the podcast, Did You Do Your Homework? And love ya. Links to both of them in the description of this episode. Martha Sullivan, how you doing today?
Good. I tell you, I have never had to sneeze more than when you started this video.
You should have just done it.
It has passed now, but as soon as you started talking, my nose was like, time for a very loud, very timely disruption.
Oh, yeah. That's the only time they show up. So tell us about, I kind of summarized it, but tell us about your background. Tell us about your, love for film, TV, your experience growing up with it.
Sure. So I have been a movie fan forever. I've always enjoyed, I like to say that I'll watch anything once, which is true. Sure. I watch a lot of stuff on a very wide divide range of quality. Specifically, and this isn't exactly what you asked, but it is related.
Sure.
Specifically, I fell in love with the Academy Awards in 2001 when Fellowship of the Ring was nominated for a whole bunch of awards and won none of them. But that was the first year. Yes. None of the Lord of the Rings all of the Lord of the Rings movies got nominated for a whole bunch of stuff and won almost nothing until Return of the King was out and won like everything.
Yeah. I remember nothing about those movies. I remember probably nothing about those Oscar ceremonies, but I vividly remember back in the day, like you and Tim Paul specifically being really upset about it.
Well, Whoopi Goldberg hosted the Academy Awards that first year and had a great bit about black hobbits, which she dubbed blobbits.
Nice.
And really, since then, I have been like totally in the bag for the Academy Awards. I love having opinions and feelings about them, and I love feeling self-righteous when the movies that I think deserve it don't win.
Who doesn't?
But I also really love it when I guess right, just like anybody else. But no, I think movies are great. I think that the things that people imagine and then are able to translate to the screen is just about as close to real life magic as we can get. Sure. Seeing somebody who can put together a really incredive film. It's like 2.5 to 3 hours of just utter transportation. I've also always been a reader, and I think that they are very, very related. They are both ways of, escaping into somewhere else for a while.
And you're a librarian by profession. How does it feel being somewhat responsible? Because you deal with a lot of youth in your profession, a lot of people, probably a lot of folks who are, in and out. You likely have regulars. What is it like seeing those people grow up on certain types of literature and then kind of remember where you were at the time?
Well, reading recommendations, helping people find a book is one of my favorite parts of my job. I truly love being asked, what movie do you recommend? What book do you recommend? What should I read next? Being able to help people find something, even if they don't like it. And I love to tell people, I'm like, if you don't like something that I recommend to you, let me know. It's not going to hurt my feelings. It'll just make me pick better next time.
There you go.
But frequently it becomes an opportunity for me to share the stories that I love. And hopefully I pitch it right and I make a correct match and I get to give a book to somebody that I love that they also end up loving. For teens especially, getting a teen, particularly a teen that isn't excited about reading, getting them a book that they end up loving, it feels like it feels like beating a final boss in a video game. Like,
I'm straight.
I had a couple of years ago, a mom brought in her 14 or 15-year-old son, and she was like, I don't care what you give him, but he needs to read a book. And I asked him a couple questions. I was like, what video games do you like to play? What movies do you like to watch? And I found a memoir of a guy about, I don't remember the author's name, but it was basically about his time riding motorcycles with a group of, like, a biker gang.
Okay.
And like a week or so later, the mom came back and she was like, he couldn't put it down. And just that kind of thing is why I do what I do.
Yeah, just that level of like positive influence. You know, with everything going on, it's vindicating, and it's nice to know that like somebody can, you know, still positively impact somebody's life.
Absolutely. And it's so reinforcing to know that I sent a book away with somebody that they actually read, because so often I'm afraid, especially with kids, it's like they're just taking this to make the adults happy.
Sure.
And knowing that they were like, that he actually ended up reading it was like, yes.
Oh yeah. No, it's like extra credit. So this episode, we are going to go over the Best Picture nominated film Power of the Dog. A domineering rancher responds with mocking cruelty when his brother brings home a new wife and her son until the unexpected comes to pass. This movie stars Benedict Cumberbatch, Kristen Dunst, Jesse Plemons, and Cody Smith McPhee, and is directed by Jane Campion. I believe that's how you pronounce it.
I believe so.
But yeah, as of this recording, nominations came out today. This is nominated for Best Picture. You were right about that. This was like our surefire, because we were planning on doing this last night. And Jesse Plemons and Kristen Dunst both got a supporting actor of their respective gender nominations as well.
So did Cody Smith McPhee.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, this one pulled out 12 nominations, I believe. We've also got Benedict Cumberbatch in Best Actor, and then a bunch of the technical awards. So Best Sound, Original Score, Adapted Screenplay, Film Editing, Cinematography, Production Design. That's kind of when you know that something is a real contender for the Best Picture award, is when they start to rack up all of those like filmmaking awards as well.
And this is exactly why you're here. This is why I recruited you specifically. Holly, what the hell? You wanted nothing to do with me since I got home, after I fed you, and now I'm recording and you're here.
He's our second guest star.
What's up, bud? But I know I'm not paying enough attention. Look at that. Jesus. I love you, buddy. So what? I guess the most prevalent theme in this movie is just the subject of toxic masculinity, explored through the characters of Phil and Peter. Will you quit it? What? Sit. Good boy. All right. One of the most prevalent themes discussed in this movie, or explored in this movie, is that of toxic masculinity, something that's been discussed heavily the last few years in the media, on social media. And despite the fact that this film takes place in the 1920s in Montana, what is your take on the parallels between back then and now?
Well, first, I just want to say that I love a Western. And I love a Western that kind of thumbs its nose at things that Westerns used to typically be about. Kelly Reichardt is another director that is very fond of making Westerns that kind of flip those masculinity themes on their heads. I thought this was a great way to explore some of those toxic masculinity themes. You've got Phil, who's played by Benedict Cumberbatch,
sure,
who is he is brothers to George, played by Jesse Plemons, and even the two of them, you have kind of the like tall, lean, dirty, gritty cowboy of Phil, and then the smaller, rounder, softer, better spoken, better dressed, cleaner brother of George, and just opening up the two of their dynamic. And then as the movie goes along, we get introduced to Rose, played by Kirsten Dunst, and her son Peter, who's played by Cody Smith-McPhee, who right off the bat is mocked for his effeminate manner, effeminate way of speaking. He makes a bouquet of paper flowers that Phil sets on fire.
Yep.
Like this movie is not being subtle with the way that Phil is set up to be this like manly epitome of a cowboy, and is also just like terrifying and horrible and mean to everybody.
Sure.
But one of the things that is sort of really clever about this movie, I should stop qualifying this because I thought this movie was really, really good.
Definitely.
One of the clever things about this movie is that by the end of it, we see that the character who is the most dangerous is Peter.
Mm-hmm.
He's just not obvious about it.
Which also touches on the idea of, taking somebody at face value, assuming their entire character based on, vocal inflections, physical appearance.
Mm-hmm. Like I never felt that any of those things were affectations of Peter. Like I thought that was very much who he was.
Sure.
But also it means that we don't necessarily, like, it's very shocking when we see him dissecting a rabbit at his desk. Like that's kind of one of the first moments when we're like, oh, this kid is not afraid to get his hands dirty. And then later when he mercy kills another rabbit, just like ain't no thing. It's like, oh, this kid can go toe to toe with Phil, who's much more overtly like cruel and mocking, and scary to the people around him. Like Rose falls apart because of how afraid of Phil she is.
And this quality in Peter's character is kind of put right in front of you at the very beginning of the movie. In the first lines of the film, the voiceover where he essentially says, like, I'm going to do what I need to do to take care of my mother. You just don't know. You don't know what that threshold is until the very end of the movie. Spoiler alert, guys. The internet exists, and we are going to go into these episodes assuming you have seen the movie. So you have been warned. I will put this at the beginning. But that final sequence when you realize that Peter spiked Phil with anthrax, he wakes up, he passes away. I had a whole point to this one. Polly, this is all your fault.
That whole progression is so subtle too. Like it's kind of a blink and you'll miss it. Like if you don't connect the cows dying of anthrax with Phil getting the infection on his hand, with Peter cutting the leather off of the dead cow, like it's so many pieces. And Campion's not hiding them from you, but she's also not like putting them up in lights. She's really trusting the audience to like put the pieces together so that by the time the film is over, if you've been paying attention, you know that Peter has like been the architect of this, for lack of a better phrase. But I appreciated that she kind of lets you take it all in without pointing a neon sign at it.
Yeah, they're even completely ambiguous about Peter's sexuality. It's kind of implied he leans a certain way, but it's also not fully revealed. And at the end of the film, it doesn't really matter.
It's kind of similar to Phil's. Like we get kind of intimations. We get some intimations that Phil may be closeted, he may have been abused in his past, and ultimately it kind of doesn't matter. Like, we get enough of it to build this picture of Phil. One of the things I want to circle back to is the idea that none of Peter's mannerisms are affected. Like, he is very genuine in who he is, which is the complete opposite of Phil, who I think is playing a character that he has entirely constructed from his perception of like what a man is. There's a moment in the movie when you find out that he went to Yale, I think, and graduated with like academic honors. And that was the moment when I realized, oh, he's just playing a part. Like, he is playing what he thinks a cowboy should be, rather than any sort of like genuine actuality of that being who he is.
Yeah, like you studied human behavior and then figured out how you feel like you need to act to survive around here. So this ain't you.
Yeah, he studied classics.
Yeah.
Which I thought that was just such an incredible character detail. Like, this guy is not stupid. He has just decided he has this idolized figure of Bronco Henry. Is that the name of his like mentor?
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like
I know who you're talking about, and I think that's the right name.
Yeah, so like the figure who kind of raised Phil and George and taught them how to be ranchers, and passed on all of this cowboy knowledge. And Bronco Henry probably like was a cowboy before the West was closed. And that is clearly like who Phil has decided is the epitome of manliness and worthiness, and is who he has sort of built his life around being.
Do you think the film deserves the nominations it's received?
I do. I think it is an incredibly well-constructed movie. I don't think it would be my pick to win Best Picture, but I'm not mad that it's there. I always love seeing a female director in the mix. I don't know that I would have given it all of the acting nominations. I think I would have picked either Jesse Plemons or Cody Smith-McPhee for Best Supporting Actor, mostly because having both of them means that they're both less likely to win because more votes will be decided.
Yeah. That is typically what happens if you have two people from the same movie, is that neither of them wins.
But yeah, I thought it was a great looking movie.
Oh, beautiful.
Let's see, I'm trying to think if they're editing. The editing category is one that I kind of historically have trouble with because I think most movies are too long. And this one is a slow burn movie intentionally, but I kind of
I mean, this is where some of my film school training will come in. There was a lot of wide shots, a lot of very like subtle and quiet sound design. The colors were very muted, except for when blood was on screen, and that was, the vibrance of that was definitely brought up. The entire production design, both like visual and audio, it was all very deliberate. Like, to your point, it was meant to be a slow burn, where the movie's only like, it's, barely passes 2 hours, but I felt like it was a 3-hour film. And I kind of mean that as a compliment.
Yeah, I think Campion really intends for you to sit in it in a very deliberate, kind of thoughtful way. We are definitely going to talk about movies that I don't think deserve to be in the best editing category. But yeah, I think the biggest change I would have made is picking either Plemons or Smith-McPhee for Best Supporting Actor. I'm trying to decide if I think Kirsten Dunst should have been put up for Best Actress, but I don't think she would have had any chance in there.
Sure.
I don't know. That one's rough. I think it's definitely going to win Adapted Screenplay. I think it's a lock for that.
You don't think Dune's going to take that one?
I don't. The tricky thing about Dune, and we'll get into this more when we talk more about Dune, I think that being part 1 of 2 will hurt it.
Oh, yeah.
Because it is intended to be the first half of a story, and I think that will hurt some of its chances for that particular award. I also think that Power of the Dog is going to be our Best Picture winner, and that typically, not always, but typically also means that it's going to take Best Director and the Screenplay award that it's nominated for. That
is typically how it goes, historically speaking, just based on my vague memory of it.
A little surprised. The last note that I'll make about the nominations is it's a historical piece, which means that I'm a little surprised it didn't get a costuming nod.
Oh yeah, no, that I didn't even think about that. But it was every moving part of that film felt meticulously planned, and that's something I really admired about it. It's generally speaking not the type of film I would seek out on my own. I watched it because we're going through this project, and I'm glad I did. I also I feel like Jesse Plemons is going to have a hell of a career, so I need to get used to him not being Todd from Breaking Bad.
I love it when real life couples have actual chemistry. I thought he and Kirsten Dunst were lovely together.
Yeah. I didn't know they were a real couple until this morning.
Yeah, I think they met on
Fargo. And that was the headline.
Yeah, I think they met on the set of Fargo.
That's awesome. Oh yeah, I need to get past season 2, but that's a whole nother thing.
I was going to say, I only got through about half of season 1 before I was like, oh no, all of these people are horrible.
Yeah. I mean, the protagonist, the woman police officer, and Bob Odenkirk are about as close to decent humans as you get. But yeah, Billy Bob Thornton is just a straight up sociopath in that. And
also, is it Martin Freeman?
It was, The Hobbit.
Okay, yes. Also terrible.
Yeah, not great. And just the sniveling, cowardly kind of not great, which isn't even entertaining. All right. I'm trying to figure out if there's anything else we are missing.
I do just want to point out. I'm sorry?
Go on.
Oh, I do just want to take one moment to mention that Cody Smith-McPhee is almost unrecognizable in this movie from his other roles that I have seen him in. I thought he was great, but also I had a moment of, 100 years ago, he was in Let Me In, the American adaptation of Let the Right One In. He plays the boy in that. He also played the Road opposite Viggo Mortensen. This is back in 2010, 2009.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
I definitely saw The Road.
And more recently, he was in Slow West, another slow burn Western movie.
There you go.
And he also played Kurt Wagner in the new X-Men movies.
Okay. Well, it's good to have, a type that, he could just be called on for. It's like The Rock in Jungle movies. He'll just have slow burn Westerns. The last thing I'm going to point out is that there's no dog scene until the 45-minute mark, which I think is just total horse shit. But I'm aware of the title. The title is technically based on a Bible verse. However, I was promised dogs and I didn't get them.
I'm in favor of making when the dog shows up just a common metric by which we judge movies. So
Yeah. Yeah. Like dogs or Muppets. Like you got to have one or the other.
bring the dog to the Oscars.
Here. Holly, if I ever make it to the Oscars, you'll be my date, okay?
As somebody who you promised like 20 years ago to bring to the Oscars, if
I'll
you
get
ever
2
won,
plus ones.
or if you were ever nominated, that hurts my feelings.
Oh, you know you're coming. I'll just sneak the dog in my backpack. He's little.
He'll be my fashion accessory.
There you go.
No one will notice.
He'll be your purse. It's fine. Don't worry about it. All right, Martha, where can we find you on social media? Where can we find your podcast? What are you up to? If people
Sure.
wanna know
So,
more.
like you mentioned at the top of the episode, I co-host two other podcasts. Those are audio only. We do not do video, which explains why I've been so awkward on this video recording.
Oh,
Did You Do Your Homework and Love Ya? You can find both of those on SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, basically anywhere that aggregates podcasts, and they share a feed. So Did You Do Your Homework and Love Ya update on alternating Wednesdays. Fridays now, alternating Fridays on the same feed. And then you can find me on all my social media at Magical Martha. I have not yet made the smart move to privatizing my accounts, so I'm just out there for anybody to find. I also write a newsletter whenever I feel like it. I think I published the last issue at the beginning of January, which you can find at tinyletter.com/Magical Martha.
there it is. There it is. Martha, thank you as always. Always a pleasure, my friend. And
Thank you. This was super fun. I'm looking forward to the next episodes.